The journey on our side in VELUX started 5 years ago when we sat down to say, okay, how do we innovate sustainable buildings? Where will it take us in the end if buildings can only get higher and bigger and cheaper? That is not going to get us closer to how we minimize the footprint and optimize the buildings for people in terms of indoor climate, but also in terms of how they feel connected, how they feel at home, how they have this sense of homeliness.
Living Places is an example project, and it's a transformative process of rethinking how our buildings should work, trying to ask the core questions of how we kind of reconnect our buildings with the environment around us, and doing that also reconnect ourselves with nature. And I think what we have proven here is that we are able to build with at least 2/3 lower CO2 emissions, and doing it while we still make super healthy and super livable homes that can be socially attractive. And I think that's a huge proof of concept, even though it is just a prototype.
Transformative partnering is this new way of working where we, throughout the whole process, are all giving a voice, collaborating towards the betterment of the goal. But I think the most important part of transformative partnering is having the partnerships where everyone is actually willing to listen, in the sense that we acknowledge that the other one has knowledge that we don't have.
Always, when we have these design phases, architects come up with the first ideas. Instead of you asked how many windows and where do you want the windows? You, Kasper, asked me, just tell me what you want. And I decided we should have them there, and the daylight design decided where the windows should be, and the ventilation design decided where to position the windows so it got cross ventilation.
Some of the new things were that actually all parties wanted to hear our opinions on buildability, affordability, and stuff like that. And that is considered the market we are in relative new.
Your role might be a little bit different than you have in other projects. In other projects, you get the drawings, test that the daylight is okay. In this project, you get Kasper saying, where should I put the windows?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a completely different way of thinking the building.
But transformative partnering is also much more than that. It's about growing multiple partnerships and thereby democratizing the knowledge in the sense that we share openly what we found.
We also like to call it the ripple effect. Like when you have water that is completely still and then there is a drop, one drop creates ripple effect. So it creates emotion into the water. We're not just building a house, we're trying to create an actual movement. The more professionals we reach, the more they, like we do, turn around and go and implement this way of thinking into their agencies.
Even before thinking about the project, I think setting up a partnership is the strongest sort of base for this project.
As a concept, it has the lowest carbon footprint of a housing project in Denmark. It has an optimal indoor climate, first class. It can be built at market price and with materials and technologies that are all here today.
LCA is, first of all, acronyms for life cycle assessment. Instead of looking at just the use phase of the building, now we look at the whole lifetime of the building. So we start counting since the materials are produced and where they come from and how much energy and, of course, CO2 emissions has been released in the production phase. And then we take step by step until we come to the construction of the building, the use phase of the building, and then what happens after? What is the second life or the life beyond the building use?
We gave ourselves a set of challenges also in the execution phase because we kind of wanted to try to do
less. For example, no plastering, no grout in the corners. But I think it also gives a more kind of honest expression. Like you see all the joints, and some places you can still see they're a bit uneven, and it's a different aesthetic. But I think it gave something else to the project. The whole concept of design for disassembly also gave us a lot of challenges in the coordination with the engineer and the contractor, because everything is visible.
Another kind of very basic principles that we kind of actually locked quite early was the typology of having the exact roof profile that we chose, because we looked at hundreds of different roof profiles, and then we decided on the kind of steep tilted roof with a flat top, because that enabled us to have these kind of double high spaces where you could have natural ventilation and take in the sort of skylight and tall daylight from the midday. And that has proven to be a super, almost kind of sacral feeling of that tall space, the way the light come in. But also when you come there on a hot summer day and it's overheated, you just open these two windows and it's like 2 minutes and it has a very nice indoor climate. It just works.
It gives the opportunity to ventilate your building, even though you're not there. And then you can get the air in and get it out through the roof windows.
We've been used to a home should look like it's cast in plaster. So it's like this white box that you live in, and suddenly you have this kind of rawness of materials being put together. And the good thing is that when people come in there, they just immediately kind of relate to it in a completely different way.
We are actually already using this prototype out here to show that you could actually deliver an even higher level of indoor climate than you have in the building regulation today. And you could deliver it with a much, much lower CO2 emissions for normal housing. We can actually do it today. And with the same materials as you said today, you could just go out and buy them. We haven't developed anything new. We've just used what is already on the market.
I also think that one of the big challenges to overcome is the challenge of business as usual. And we've developed this in this small sort of experimental test bed. But once you come out of this small circle, we are up against the power of business as usual. And this industry is sort of based on risk minimization, and that is best done by working business as usual. So actually just changing things alone, I think, is a big thing to overcome in this industry, because people are most comfortable and they expect that people are still, asking for the same type of homes that they did 30 years ago, which I don't think is true, but you need to prove it.
We saw this opportunity to get into a project where we could show off the world how to build the future homes. The commercial angle of it, that can people see themselves living in these places on a daily basis? We don't know that yet. I think that is one of the challenges here going forward and scaling out. We need to convince the market that this is competitive.
If we can make this the starting point, say it's not either affordable or sustainable, it's not either healthy for people or for planet. We can actually have all of this if we take a few more moments to think about what it is that we want to design. I think that's the key learning. We can do much more if we take the time to actually define the targets.
The principles are values. The healthy one is the value of recognizing that we are part of nature, not from it. And in the shared one, it's the idea that I am because you are. We only exist because of others. And the simple one is the realization that resources has to be used in a mindful way if we actually really want to be here together. And the adaptive one is that we care for each other, making it inclusive and empathetic and scalable, allowing this system to be for everyone, so it's not a guarded one. I think those values are really good and can guide us to go quite far if we use these, no matter how we build.
When we talk about healthy buildings, we actually mean a building that is healthy for people and planet, as we said, but especially if we focus on the people aspect, they're inside the building. They need to breathe, they need to live comfortably in the building, so they need to have an adequate temperature. And all these elements come together if you design properly.
The simple principle is one of the principles that really can help me in my daily basis as an engineer, because I think we could make our buildings very much more simple than we have done in the last decade, I would say. And we have a constant movement on doing them more smart and always measure and tracking it back to the ventilation system or the heating and all the stuff. And if we make them as simple as possible, I think people can actually interact with them the way we actually thought they should have done it.
The simple principles are for us as a contractor also a way of thinking about how do we assemble, for example, the elements for a building. How can we do that more simple, more cost efficient? And by that also leaning into the next principle of scaling. Because when we are thinking about scaling, we can also say, okay, how can we modularize these principles and taking those into another scale of industrial scale?
We are actually creating principal solutions that can scale and be used in not only single-family houses, but also apartment houses, row houses. So these principles can be replicated, but also developed into multiple solutions. The scalable principle is insanely important because I believe that we have now proven that we can build in this way within the sort of budget and price points of traditional housing. So getting that out there, that it is not more expensive to build sustainable, it's one of the most important myths that we need to kill.
And maybe touching upon the shared, I think that's the one design principle that we actually didn't show so much in this example project yet, because it's nobody lives there. So it would be very interesting to see how this concept works when it becomes a community, and can we even do the houses even smaller than we did here because we share more facilities. I think that would be very interesting to work more with in the future.
The idea that the home can work with you over time, I think it's very important in relation to the feeling of connectedness. People understanding through the simple principle what the houses are made of, how they work, what they can do themselves to impact it, but also knowing that this is not a fixed system or a fixed frame. If you either get a child more, or your mother-in-law moves in, or you will be a double family, which one of the 38 family patterns that there are, the house can work with you. And you are able to change it over time so that it will fit the needs you have here and now. But as long as you have the connection between the people and planet, and look at that in a systematic approach, then you have a very good start.
I think I've been asked a lot of times over these years what was the real innovation in Living Places. And one of the things I always say is the time that we spent early at the beginning without drawings, just discussing and brainstorming what are we trying to do here. I think that was the real innovation. That is something that doesn't always happen normally in the industry.
We also need to stay open to learning new things because so much is evolving in the industry right now. So I think it's also the mindset that we have to stay open-minded and keep on taking new information in.
And I think that's the biggest learning here, because I think that potential is within every project, that if you start asking different questions, you will be able to come up with different answers.
The idea that we live in a society where we need more and more, and we think we are more happy the bigger our house is actually the opposite. I think understanding living with less stuff can give us more freedom, and happiness is actually the true testimony of what good architecture is in the future.
I'm so happy that we actually managed to get it built because now it's there and it's proven, and we can go sit there and feel it, and we know how it works. And that, I think, is probably the best sort of setup to actually have other people take this learning and take the learnings forward into new projects.
We invite the whole industry to share with us the knowledge, look into the results, and see what we have done, and use it in their work, in their daily agency, to make buildings that have a lower footprint and a better indoor climate for planet and for people.